Story 1. Sometimes my sons just can't stop moving, and you can feel their energy radiating off of them. They just have to run, climb, wrestle, or jump to get the energy out. Story 2. My sons are 2 years apart. Most of the family travel in the car was spent warning them to disengage from a complicated interlock of hands, legs, and body parts. I found a lucky solution when we got our Irish setter. She would place herself in the space between the two and break up any fights. They are grown men now. One is a dad. The dog is gone. Every now and then, they still break into a bit of wrestling, which only shows that boys will be boys. Story 3. I grew up in rural Wisconsin. The property had been a farm at one time before regular trash pickup, so there were a couple of stone piles that also had junk on them. Old rusty cans, glass bottles, broken farm machinery, broken tools, and whatever else. One day, I thought I could put some old upholstery springs on my feet and jump higher like Wall-E. Coyote. Story 4. This happened less than 2 months ago. My 3-year-old son was pretending to be a flying superhero. He jumped off the bed and got a 4.5-inch fracture down his tibia, fracturing his shin bone almost the whole way down. He got a cast put on, and the very next day gave himself a black eye doing the exact same thing. Edit. Thank you for the award. Story 5. My 3-year-old likes using his head like a basketball. We have a tiny basketball hoop in his room, and I swear whenever I come in, he has his head in that, trying to do a headstand. For context, the basketball hoop isn't tall or on a door. It's just big enough for him to tip his body into it. Story 6. The Adventures of My 3 Brothers. Human rock, paper, scissors. The game was simple. Rock was a cannonball pose, paper meant you'd spread out, and scissors was pretty much like paper. You'd all jump, and on 3 choose one and all simultaneously jump into the center. Many bruises and more broken bones. It was my personal favorite. Rhino. A trampoline game where you run around someone in the center who is trying to tackle everyone while also screaming, Rhino. Hide and seek in the dark. You all go to one room, take the mattress off the bed, and when the person comes in the room, throw it at them. Rainbow Run or something like that. Another trampoline game where you ran in a circle and shoved each other off the trampoline to get in front of them. Similar to King of the Hill, but with more broken bones and chaos. And yes, we were left unsupervised. A lot. Story 7. Joking around with your buddies, calling each other cunts and assholes, is fine as long as everybody knows it's all in jest, which in my experience has always been the case among friends. Story 8. Making jokes about poop and giggling like little kids about it even though they are over 30 years old. I am a woman, but I work in a shop and am getting married to someone who works in a shop. Story 9. 2 guys in my physics class were fighting with meter sticks as if they were lightsabers, and the physics professor put on Star Wars-themed music in the background instead of stopping them. Everyone else just watched their actions with excitement. All the students are 18, and the professor is 57, but everyone was enjoying that epic battle. Cheers to these great genuine boys, including the professor, with whom I have the pleasure to study alongside. Story 10. Water parks. Going down on a raft slide and purposely throwing my body weight around the raft to get a more spontaneous, thrilling ride. Guess it's not super innocent, but it sure is damn fun. Story 11. That gif of the guys putting a motorbike wheel on the whirligig spinny thing, the circle of death with handles at a playground. The essence of boys will be boys should just be, forget it. Let's see what happens. Story 12. All the boys in the family, including visiting cousins, were sliding down the stairs on a duvet or in a sleeping bag. Then the youngest boy decided to stand up mid-slide, catching his arm and doing a flip over the banister. This resulted in him breaking his arm in the first week of the 6-week holidays. He later that week tried to slide again, but with his cast on and arm in a sling. What can you do? Boys will be boys. Story 13. I would say any adult sports league. I play in a hockey beer league, and you would be surprised at how competitive some of these guys get when there is absolutely nothing on the line. Guys with a wife and kids at home and a full-time job, yet they are dropping down to block shots with a half shield on. How stupid can you get? Or just the general complaining and moaning after every single penalty or whistle. I am all for being competitive when necessary, but some people just never take a break. Story 14. My kindergarten son got in trouble for drawing butts at school. He accepted the punishment but did not regret his actions whatsoever because it made his friend laugh and butts are funny. We've all been there. Story 15. Kids between the age of 1 and 4 smashing plastic dinosaurs face first into each other with absolutely zero comprehension of what an actual dinosaur is. It's absolutely inherent in us to watch and enjoy prehistoric killers fight to the death. Story 16. When I was in elementary school, my dad approved my idea of a game called Crash, where I rode my bike down the hill outside our house at full speed and dove off into the bushes or grass in our yard. He got in trouble with my mom but later advocated for me, and I was able to keep playing. It's an incredible father-son memory. Good dads rule. Story 17. Climbing out his 9-year-old brother's window in the roof to better talk to his 5-year-old brother. And then when his younger brother climbs out too, he runs over to push him back in, yelling, "It's not safe. My wife and I learned this today. Safe to say things did not go well for the older brother." Edit. Read that this was supposed to be innocent. Whoops. Story 18. Boys like to hit each other with sticks like swords. Boys put each other in chokeholds and hit each other, along with every other animal. They do the same thing. They have an obsession with dead things, unless that was just me. My little brother is a wuss. Story 19. This may be unpopular, but I think wrestling and fighting are perfectly normal outlets for boys when they are young. I got into scuffles a lot as a kid, but rarely did I have negative feelings towards my opponent afterwards. In fact, my best friend from middle school and I became friends after we fought. That being said, there are rules and limits. No weapons, stop if someone gets seriously hurt, no scratching or low blows. Story 20. Double dares. Growing up in South Florida meant that the boys and I would double dog dare each other to jump down into an alligator nest before the mother gator came swimming back. Story 21. My nephew used to put mud down his pants and waddle around with his underwear full of mud. He used to giggle because he said, "It looks like I'm pooping myself," when it all starts to slowly fall out. Imagine the uncontrollable laugh of a 5-year-old little boy running around the backyard with mud falling out of his pants. Haha. Story 22. Peeing into containers as part of imaginative play. Making gross condiment mixtures and daring each other to eat them. Creating clubs and making them exclusive but everyone gets in with oddly specific rules. Stocking toys in their beds and bartering for them. Lego creations, their inevitable destruction, and the emotional meltdown that follows. Fighting over who will marry a particular girl around ages 8 to 10. Fantasizing or dreaming about a cartoon girl around ages 8 to 10, especially rescuing her. Breaking something in the house with their toy tools like windows or furniture upholstery. Roaring contests, especially in the 4 to 8 age range. Being rough on an entire house, tightening doorknobs and hinges every 3 to 6 months. God, have mercy on any bug that enters my house. Spiders, in particular, get mashed into oblivion. Story 23. Back when I was young in the early 1990s, I recall asking for a Polly Pocket toy for Christmas. I was laughed at by my cousins and even my mother for asking for a girl's toy. It was an odd feeling, and it's one of my earliest memories of being criticized. Obviously, I wasn't traumatized by it, but it certainly resonated with me as I grew older. Flash forward to Christmas 2019. Now a 32-year-old construction worker with a bald head and grizzly beard. My own 4-year-old asks for a dolly and stroller from Santa. There's no question that Santa will be bringing him what he wants. Now I have a fantastic memory. Cuddled up, holding my baby while he holds his. Watching TV on Christmas Day. Just boys being boys. Story 24. Running around with your friends and getting hurt. My nephew was at school playing with his friends and had a nasty fall. Couple of scrapes. Nothing major, but it was a bit of a shock. I showed up to pick him up from school, and the teachers looked downright mortified when they saw me. They told me, first of all, he's okay, and the little guy just showed me his scrapes. I asked them what happened and laughed. I said it was no big deal, kids fall. No harm, no foul. Boys will be boys, you know? The teachers looked like a burden was lifted off their shoulders. They thanked me for being understanding, but it's really not a big deal. I got injured way more as a kid, and the kid's basically a smaller version of me. He'll learn eventually. Until then, I just have to make sure he doesn't need too many stitches. Story 25. My brothers and I would prank the neighborhood. One of my favorites was when we filled up these insanely large water balloons and lined them across the main road. They were big and black, so they could have looked like rocks, but still had that plastic shine to them. As we ran away, some mom in her sport utility vehicle started yelling at us to clean them up and carefully drove around them when she realized her attempt was futile. Some dude ended up racing down the street and smashed into 3 to 4 of them and made a good splash. Fun times. Story 26. Kid is strolling around the room casually playing with his toys. Parental unit. Child, do you have to go to the bathroom? Kid, nope. Parental unit. Why are you holding yourself around other people? Kid, for the magic. Story 27. When they fart really hard and belly laugh until they fart again, and then hear a noise that sounds like a fart, they keep laughing until they knock things off tables from laughing so hard. Story 28. All your brothers hyping you up to talk to your crush, you not wanting to, them threatening to do it for you, you're gonna do it yourself and bringing the news back. Hopefully, fist bumps fill the air. Other times, they offer you their candy at lunch or promise video games after school if there is bad news. It's all fun to have a girl in your life, but the brothers always have your back. Story 29. Breaking windows. 2 instances in my life between the ages of 10 and 12 where I broke windows being foolish. One time, my best friend at the time had just gotten a soccer goal in his backyard. We were excited to try hitting upper 90s, the top corner of a goal, and he kicked one above the goal and broke the neighbor's window. His dad was surprisingly calm, definitely still upset, and told us to go and apologize face-to-face to his neighbors. We felt especially bad because these neighbors let us use their basketball hoop anytime we wanted. His dad paid for the window and never told my parents about it. What a guy. Story 30. When I was a child, my brother and I thought it would be a good idea to try to climb up the fireplace chimney and got covered in ash. Mind you, we were on our way to church, so we were dressed up. As a bonus, that's when I found out Santa wasn't real because there's no way anyone was climbing that little shaft. We tried, and we were tiny back then. Story 31. I work at a predominantly special needs pre-kindergarten school as a support teacher for all of the classrooms. A lot of the boys have a habit of putting their hands in their pants. That's not new to me because my boyfriend mindlessly does this too when he's relaxing. He says it's warm down there and calms him. I try to remind the boys not to do this, especially not while in school. One day, I was in a class with this normally rambunctious little boy, and while we were all eating, I noticed he put his hands in his pants. Before I could even finish my sentence, he goes, "Good night," and pulls his little Paw Patrol beanie over his eyes and goes to sleep that instant. The other teacher and I thought he was playing around, but he was actually asleep in that moment. We didn't risk waking him up as it can be difficult to calm him down at times. We knew that his life at home has been pretty rough and thought he probably needed a peaceful break. Story 32. My mom recently discovered an entire battalion of plastic army men buried in the backyard. My friends and I blew them up and melted them with fireworks around 12 years ago, and we subsequently buried them. I had completely forgotten about it until she discovered them. Story 33. Dad told me when I was 10 at the time if I wanted to swear, I should go into the front paddock, about 10 acres, and do it out there. The next day, after a difficult day at school, I stayed out there for about 45 minutes, yelling every curse I knew and even made up some. Eventually, someone driving past, who could see me from the road, pulled over and asked if I was all right. Turns out, my dad didn't think I would take him seriously. He just wanted me to stop swearing. Story 34. I am a single mother of a 6-year-old, and I recently started seeing a lovely man. It had been a bit of time, and we were ready to introduce him as a friend to my son. To cut a boring introduction short, I went to make tea, heard a lot of giggling, and came back to my tall boyfriend holding my child upside down by his ankles so he could walk on the ceiling. Neither of them had the decency to look ashamed, both grinning from ear to ear, super proud of their Spider-Man moment. Turns out hanging out with my little man releases the inner child in my boyfriend too. Story 35. Most of you will dislike this, but looking at an attractive woman. I'm not saying you should stare, objectify, or catcall. I'm saying it's legitimately in our biology to look and be attracted to it. No matter when, we're always interested. A great-looking woman walks by, and you can see all the men have the same glance, the same way a woman might admire a muscular man. Story 36. My brother, best friend, and I once came home completely covered in mud to the waist after literally wading through a swamp for a couple of hours. My mother could only laugh and forbade us from coming into the house until she hosed us off. Oh, and that homemade ramp thing. Story 37. Wrestling around and breaking things on accident. Throwing the ball or frisbee onto the roof. Being informed that something smells awful and being compelled to smell it to see just how awful. Story 38. When my son was about 7, I drove up to his after-school program and found him and 3 of his friends playing a game in one section of the parking lot. The game was to run as fast as possible at one of the other boys and slam him into the concrete. They thought this was hysterical. That, for sure, is a boys will be boys moment.